Hey guys, and welcome to the Global Conscious Project podcast. My name's Nicola. I am your host today, and today we're going to be talking about some experiences that I have had during my energy healing sessions. So, it's really common for people to know what it's like to receive energy healing, but not many people actually know what it's like to be the healer. Like, what are we actually doing to your body, to your energy body? And how can we pick up the things that we pick up, and how do we actually heal you? So, yeah, it's pretty interesting because every healer goes through something different. So, for me, it is basically like I just know these words keep repeating in my head. I see things on people's bodies, and I also get this sense of just knowing what is going on in someone's body. So I'm going to give you some examples because I've been doing a few energy healings in the last few weeks, and yeah, it's been some pretty cool stuff come up. So yeah, it's really interesting for me because obviously like every person is different, and every time that I go into a healing, it is completely different than the last time. So yeah, I had this client who was getting migraines, and she's been coming to me for massages for a while, but massage alone wasn't fixing the problem, and I gave her exercises. I tried to physically fix the problem, but the problem was not a physical one. It was definitely more of an emotional or a spiritual thing that was going on in her body. And the way that I knew that was because after so many treatments, we weren't really making any progress. We just get to a point, and then the next few times she'd come in, it would be exactly the same as where I left her, or maybe just a tiny bit better. But normally, if it's a physical problem, the massage should be healing that and should be taking that to the next level, and you should be healing a lot faster. So that's how I know when it's a physical, emotional, or mental problem. Is I just have to monitor what's happening with each client, and each client's problems are different, as I said before. So I started healing her, and I was healing and doing massage, which was pretty cool because you can go through the whole body then, like the whole physical body, and treat it on a physical and an energetic level. And I found throughout her body, especially in her legs, there was definitely some stagnant energy, but the most interesting thing is that in her head, behind her left eye, where she gets the migraines, which I didn't know before this, there was like this, it was like a hairball, but not made of hair. It was kind of the shape of a hairball, the consistency of a hairball, but each strand was a little bit thicker. And I said to her, "Do you get migraines in your forehead?" And she said, "Yes." "Do you get migraines in your left side?" "Yes." "Do you get migraines right here?" And I pointed to her left eye, and she was like, "Yes." And I was like, "Yeah, there's like a big something in there." And it's like a hairball. And she said, "Oh, that's probably all of my thoughts, all of my racing thoughts." Now, this came from a client who assured me that she wasn't stressed and that there was nothing that she could be, that could emotionally or mentally be affecting her body that much. And she was sure that her migraines were just something that she would live with forever. So I went about and I cleared this hairball of thoughts out of the side of her left forehead, behind in that eye. Now, the thing with a hairball is, you know how when you pull it out of something, out of the drain or out of your hairbrush or whatever, there's still strands coming from everywhere? Well, her strands of hair, they weren't really hair, but the strands of thoughts were like all twined in, like inside her jaw, inside her face, inside her neck. They were all like still like coming up for her. So I was constantly pulling all of this hair out of her left eye, which sounds gross, but it's not really hair. It's pulling the thoughts out of her face, out of her left eye, out of her forehead, and eventually it slowed down. And then I finished off the healing, and I saw her a week later, and normally she gets migraines, I think 2 or 3 times a week. And I said to her, have you had a migraine this week? And she said, no, I haven't. And I was like, okay, well, do you think that's because of the healing? And she said, oh, I don't know. Now, most of my clients are not spiritual people. They don't really know about healing. They don't know about how it works. They don't understand the concept behind energy healing. And so for someone to think about being healed when they don't believe in healing is really, really hard for them, and really interesting for me, because I know that it worked, but it's about planting the seed and helping them realize that it worked for them. So yeah, that was pretty cool. That was definitely one of the coolest experiences that I've had. But definitely, like, the most common thing that I'm finding in people's bodies is like nails and thorns and like big crystals that are like crystallized emotions and crystallized experiences that haven't been dealt with or haven't been processed properly by the body or by the person, and it kind of just gets lodged in the body, and then you need someone basically to take it out for you, unless you know that it's there yourself. So you can definitely heal yourself. You can definitely learn how to do this for yourself. And it's not something that, you know, only professional woo-woo queens know how to do. It's not something that that is exclusive to a certain like demographic of the population. It is literally available to absolutely anyone. A healing is basically just utilizing life force energy and channeling it through your body onto another person. And so how I do that is I imagine that the light or the energy from outside of me is coming either in through my heart or in through my head and through my body and then out through my hands. But when I'm massaging, obviously my hands are busy doing other things, so I can do it through my mind's eye as well. It's all about intention. It's all about learning how to intentionally achieve what you want. And yeah, for me, that is basically just scanning the client's body to find the imbalances, to find the stagnant energy, to find whatever it is that I'm meant to find, and then actively like getting it out or moving that stagnant energy or moving it so that it can clear and so that the person can feel better sooner. The most common thing that happens when people are in my healing sessions is they get really groggy, they get really tired, because finally their energetic body is moving properly and it's like rebalancing, and it's like a deep state of relaxation for them, which is super cool. And so it's really, really amazing to know that what you're doing is helping someone on that next level. So I'll give you some more examples of what I've found. The most exciting one, that is the most woo-woo one that has happened so far in my whole healing career, is I have another client and he suffers from allergies. He has a sore back. Like, he came to me because he got headaches and he has a sore lower back, and he's had that for like, you know, years, so long. And he's pretty young, like he's probably, you know, late 20s, 30s. So that's pretty young for someone to have a sore back, to that extent anyway. So I was like, okay, it is healing. Your back is physically healing, but it's like you've got a shell over your body. It's like I can't get fully into underneath that shell. I can't get fully in to access that next layer of your physical body. And so I think what's happening is you have some emotional, mental, or spiritual blockages in there. So I set out and I was like, this guy is like, I don't know how spiritual he is, but definitely he'd never had a healing before. And I was like, would you be open to energy healing? And he said, yeah, whatever, let's give it a go. And so I was like, okay, let's do this. So I found in his body a lot of different little things. I found that he has some brothers who are I wasn't quite sure what was going on, so I probed and I asked a few questions, and I could just sense that there was something with the brothers there, and it turns out that they had illness. And so I was like, okay, cool. So you're definitely carrying something from that. And they'd been ill for a long time. So he'd been carrying that on his right side of the body, which is the masculine side of the body. And yeah, the energy in his legs was stagnant. He had like this barrier up, but something was under his rib, under the rib on the right side. And I kept feeling that every time he'd come in. I was like, there's something in there. It's not your lung, but there's nothing else physically on that side of the body. And then just last week, I was like treating him and healing him, and the word spleen kept coming up, and he'd had this sore shoulder on the right side as well. And I just kept thinking spleen. And I was like, oh, the spleen's not that important, like it's not something that you actually need. You can get by without it. So it's interesting that there's definitely something going on with your spleen. So I went out after the session and I looked it up, and it turns out that the spleen meridian comes up into the shoulder, which is exactly the pathway that I'd been seeing in my mind while I'd been healing him. And the spleen is home to obsessions, and I was like, okay, this is interesting. So I took it to him and I was like, oh, so the emotional things that are held in the spleen, or the mental things that are held in the spleen, are actually obsessions. And he said, oh my God, that is so me. I am obsessed. I get obsessed really easily about things. And I was like, okay, well, that's why your shoulder's sore, because you've been obsessing over random things. And he was like, oh, that makes so much sense. And I was like, yeah, this is so cool. And this guy, he has a certain aura that I've never felt before in someone. And I think that he might be a channel, but obviously I have to lead up to telling him that. But one day when I was healing him a couple of weeks ago, he was really, really calm. And I was like, whoa, your aura is really, really calm. You're really calm today. And he said, yeah, it's Friday. And I said, I think it's a bit more than that. And all of a sudden I could feel these angels, and it was like 2 angels, and they were just watching over him. And I was like, whoa, that's so cool. Like, I'm not really sure what that means yet, but I've never had that appear in a healing before. And so this guy has been protected by these angels for his whole life, and they're just sitting there watching over him, which is so beautiful. And I was like, okay, you're definitely a channel. Like, this is so cool. So there's lots of different things that come up in a healing session, and it baffles me every time that every single person is completely different. Every single person has different issues. Every single person is just, completely separate from the last one. Another one that I really wanted to talk about too is someone who I've been treating for a long time as well, and he's suffered with mental illness. He's had like a lot of things happen in his life that he'd already told me about, but his body was not getting better with massage. And I was like, okay, you need to meditate, you need to start doing yoga. And he started that, and it was improving, but there was definitely still something else in there. So I also put it to him, maybe we could try energy healing. And he was like, oh yeah, like he was skeptical, but he was like, yep, okay, let's give it a go. And I said, this is the next step forward. Like, this is the next step for you. So we did the healing, and he was like a turtle as well. He had this huge barrier. It was like a big shell over the top of his body. And I'd known that for a while, because every time I treated him, I was like pushing so hard trying to get through that top layer, and I couldn't get through to the muscles because it was like so thick. And I was trying to heal him. I was trying to get all this like energy out. I was trying to like move it so that it flowed through his body, but he had such big barriers around him that the energy was stuck inside of him. I couldn't get it out. I couldn't get it out in all of the normal places, like the third eye, the top of the head, the bottom of the feet, the shoulders, even the heart chakra. I couldn't get it out of his body, which is really unusual. And so yeah, I was like, okay, I'm going to tune into your emotions. I'm going to tune into what you're holding on to. And he just had so much anger. He was holding on to so much resentment, so much anger, so much just hate for the world around him, hate for the things that he'd been through, hate for people in his life. And I was like, you're really angry. You're really angry at the world, and you're holding on to that. It's like you don't want to let go because, I don't know, you're scared of getting hurt, or you're scared that if you lose control, then something bad will happen. And he was like, yeah, that's really, really true. I have a friend who's been telling me that lately. And I said, well, that friend knows what he's talking about. And yeah, he was like, yep, that's definitely true. And so I went about and I started healing him. Every week I'd give him a little bit of healing. And this is someone who was very skeptical. From the first session to the second healing session, there was a noticeably huge difference in his body composition. He had had no pain. He could surf for hours and hours, whereas before he couldn't even walk up the beach afterwards because he was so stiff. There was a huge difference in the composition of his body, so I could actually massage him rather than it massaging, feeling like a brick wall. It was actually like supple and soft, which is how it should be. And then every time after that, we'd release more things. We'd release further and further, and we've gotten to this point now where I said, there's only one person that you need to let in, and you know who that is. And we talked about that, and I was like, you just need to open up to her, and then that's gonna like open up all of this energy channel through that heart center, which is going to help you so much in your whole life. And he was like, yeah, I know, and that's something that I've been thinking about too. So it's like energy healing is just so powerful because it can break through those barriers that people have. It can break through those preconceived ideas that people have. It can break through those beliefs, those subconscious things, those stories that we tell ourselves. And it can actually heal on such a deep level that it's just so incredibly powerful. There's no words for this. As you can see, I'm struggling to find words for it. It's so powerful and so potent. And the best thing about it is you don't have to be right in front of a healer for them to be able to heal you. I can heal people from a distance. I heal friends all the time. They'll call me and they'll be like, oh, I don't know what's wrong. I just feel like rubbish. And I was like, all right, give me a sec. And I tune into their body, give them a healing, and they live like halfway across the world or the country. And I get back to them and I'm like, oh, do you have a headache? Do you feel tight in your shoulders? That's, part of this, and this. And they're always like, yeah, I could feel that subsiding as you were doing it. And I was like, yes, that is how it works. It's really powerful. And I love that you can use that as a tool for anyone as long as they're consenting. And I love that you can, heal people at any time, any place, and they can receive it at any time and any place. And that works just by setting the correct intentions. So I could send healing right now to someone, but they might not want to receive it until tomorrow, and that's fine. And it still works as powerfully as it does when you're doing it face to face at the same time in the same place. So it's super, super powerful. And I always talk about how the key to optimum health is treating the body on a mental, physical, spiritual, emotional levels, all of the levels. You've got to have a holistic approach, and energy healing allows you to tap into those things that might not be as prominent in someone who is just operating from the physical and conscious brain. So yeah, it's really cool. I haven't really talked about how it actually works. I kind of spotted over it, but if you just have a Google, if you're really interested in learning how to heal, or you want a healing session, or you just want to understand more, go and have a Google, look me up, ask me a question, reach out to me. There's so many ways that we can communicate about this, and there's so many ways that You can be helped through energy healing, not only for yourself, but if you want to become a healer for someone else. It's really quite simple. You can definitely achieve a lot. You can definitely provide an amazing insight for yourself and for other people through energy healing, generally, but also in specific cases, like someone who's ill, someone who needs help, someone who's really at a loss, someone who's going through mental illness, someone who's going through physical illness. Just anyone who actually needs you can benefit so much from being healed or having a healing session. And it doesn't just stop there. The world can be healed. You can heal Mother Earth, you can heal the sky, you can heal your dog. There's so many different ways that you can contribute to society through healing yourself and healing other people. And I think that's really powerful, and that is what led me to the Global Conscious Project, is just knowing that I can make a difference and knowing that I can inspire other people to make a difference in their life and other people's life, and therefore the world as a whole. Yeah, so it's pretty cool. I obviously love it a lot, and I'm really happy to share all of this with you. And I hope that you've enjoyed this podcast or video, depending on where you're watching or listening. If you haven't yet followed me on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and obviously my podcast, which you're listening to, is on Spotify, iTunes, and Buzzsprout, and also my website. You can find all of those at the Global Conscious Project, or my website is www.theglobalconsciousproject.com. So guys, I will see you in the next episode. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.